Tell you when. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Beata Leah. I'm an attorney at Minsky, McCormick, and Halligan, and I'm joined today by another attorney at our office, the Honorable Robert Vinacore, who was an immigration judge from 1984 to 2017 when he joined our firm. And the purpose of today is to discuss the impact that the coronavirus has had on deportation proceedings specifically. So why don't you tell us how, just generally, have the immigration courts been impacted by the pandemic? How have hearings been impacted? What's been happening in removal proceedings since the pandemic started?
Well, like most of the government, the immigration court in Chicago has canceled hearings through May 15th, 2020. And the type of hearings they do are status hearings involving many, many cases, and then individual trials. And so far, both types of cases have been canceled to May 15th. So the people that have been scheduled between now and May 15th, their cases will be rescheduled.
And what about individuals who are detained?
Well, individual cases are still going forward over the telephone concerning bond hearings and even individual hearings. The hearings are being conducted telephonically.
Okay.
If the person is detained, the attorneys appear telephonically, but they have a televideo setup where the judges speak to the detainee by televideo from the facility that they're held at.
Okay. And do we know right now when those hearings that have been automatically canceled will be rescheduled? Any word from the judges, from the union, from the court about when we can expect to get those hearings again?
Well, unfortunately, there is a current backlog in Chicago as well as in other cities. And the first initial hearing that may have been scheduled in early 2020 may be continued for a full year before required to go back to court. I've had cases where they were scheduled in April and they're getting a new date of April 2021.
Okay. So expect delays now as a result of this.
Absolutely.
And when things finally do reopen, how do you think the courts, or do we know how the courts will respond to the pandemic? Do you think things will be done differently as a result?
No, things will not get back to normal for at least a year to 2 years. The courts will have to figure out how to conduct hearings without subjecting the vulnerable population to too much risk. So I would think at the initial stages of the case, the judges will waive the appearance of the clients and the attorneys will appear telephonically and proceed to set the case moving forward, and then pick a final trial date where the client may have to appear telephonically as well. So I don't see that many cases going forward in person in court.
So you're referring to the initial master calendar hearings, for example. You don't think that in the near future individuals will hopefully will not be required to be present for those? How do you imagine we would be prepping clients for those hearings in that case?
Well, we would prep them the same way. I don't even know if the attorneys will be allowed to appear for master calendar hearings, but we would prep them exactly the same way. We may be able to request telephonic hearings, have our clients with us in our office, and go live to the immigration court by telephone. But I don't, the way Chicago is set up, as well as other courts, it's a generally average size waiting room. 300 cases may be scheduled. It's standing room only. So they can't go back to what we've done in the past because there's no distancing at all in Chicago.
And do you see any drawbacks to representing clients and their rights and their interests in requesting such telephonic hearings?
Well, there's always very strong cases that can be resolved possibly by pretrial conference and stipulation with the government attorney's office, and those cases would have no problem moving forward telephonically. But in the cases that are complex, where government is contesting every issue, I think you lose something by conducting a telephonic hearing, and the amount of preparation would be much greater to have your client prepared to testify telephonically. I see on a borderline case, the judge should be able to see the client. If it's a sympathetic case, the impact to the judges, persuasively, is seeing the client, seeing the emotion of the client. Over telephone, you lose that. So in the difficult cases, I would suggest seeking continuances until things get back to normal because you feel that you need an in-person hearing. On the cases that are straightforward, I see no problem conducting a telephonic hearing.
Okay. And what about the issue of translation? I mean, do you think that there's anything that would be lost in translation when something has to be done telephonically?
I don't think that'll be an issue if the interpreter is sitting with the judge or the interpreter is sitting with the client. If something doesn't come out right, you can ask the interpreter to repeat it, ask the judge and say, my client didn't understand what was asked. The main point is if you do a telephonic hearing, your client should understand what it is we're trying to bring out through direct examination. If they know the goal of their testimony, that I'll face great difficulty returning to my country. My family here would suffer extreme hardships if I had to leave. And if the client understands what we're trying to prove, then a telephonic hearing would be okay.
Okay. And any final words for clients and for other individuals who are in the midst of deportation proceedings right now and are worried about, the impact of the pandemic on their cases? Any recommendations?
I would say to sit tight, realize that your case is going to take longer to be decided, that it might be pushed back, but we will get a final resolution in your case. Now, if there are hardship factors or some priority to your case, you have a relative who's aged that is at health risk, we certainly would be happy to move the court to expedite your case or resolve it through a pretrial conference. So there are cases that I think we can move forward, and there are other cases that we suggest be put at the end of the docket.
So we can at least attempt to speed cases up if need be, or sit on cases if that is preferred.
Yes, I think, most cases are going to be resolved. People have relief available. That's not going to change. And I would just say, let's relax and decide whether or not we can conduct your hearing telephonically or whether we need to ask the court for a further continuance.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And thanks for everybody who joined us and who's watching this after we went live. If you have any questions for myself, for Bob, or for any of our other immigration attorneys, feel free to call us at 312-427-6163 or visit our website at www.mmhpc.com. We'd be happy to help. Thank you.